high above the world, where cities drift on vast sky currents, the cloud shepherds guide living flocks of storm beasts that keep the heavens in balance. When apprentice shepherd Kale discovers a dying thunder beast carrying a cryptic warning, he is thrust into a secret war between sky guilds, merchants, and exiled raiders. Alongside Arya, a daring wind rider, Kale must uncover the truth behind the fading storms that threaten to collapse their floating realms. As alliances fracture and betrayal soars on every breeze, Kale faces an impossible choice: protect the fragile skies, or risk everything to forge a new destiny. The early morning sun cast a pale gold across the edges of the floating isle, illuminating the soft wisps of clouds that curled and drifted just above the moss-covered stones. Elara stood at the precipice, the wind tugging playfully at her dark hair, which fell in tangled waves around her slender face. Her bright grey eyes mirrored the vast sky, reflecting the endless blue and the gentle dance of the clouds that were both her teachers and companions now. Today marked the beginning of her apprenticeship as a cloud shepherd. The path had been laid before her ever since she was a child, a path etched in the stories whispered by her missing father, who had vanished years ago during a great storm. Now, with the gentle guidance of Kaelin, the seasoned shepherd whose weather-beaten face spoke of countless battles with tempests, Elara was ready to step into her destiny. Elara, Kaelin's voice was steady, a calm anchor in the shifting breeze. The clouds are not mere vapor and wind. They are alive, sentient in ways you must learn to perceive. They carry moods, memories, and sometimes secrets. You must listen with more than your ears. Elara nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She reached out her hand, palm upward, to a small cloud hovering near the edge of the isle. It shimmered softly, a silvery glow pulsing in time with her breath. The cloud responded to her touch, curling gently around her fingers as if recognizing a kindred spirit. A subtle warmth spread through her palm, and a faint, musical hum filled the air. "Good," Kaelin murmured, stepping closer. "That connection is rare. You have the gift, Elara, but gifts are only as strong as the will that wields them." As the morning unfolded, Elara learned the delicate art of cloud tending, coaxing the clouds to shift, grow, or disperse with a whisper or a touch, reading their moods like a seasoned storyteller reads a familiar tale. She practiced alongside Myra, her cheerful friend and fellow apprentice, whose laughter was as light as the cirrus clouds above. "Try not to get lost in the sky, Elara," Myra teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief as they chased wisps of mist between the floating boulders of their island home. Yet beneath the laughter, a subtle unease threaded through the air. The clouds behaved oddly, swirling in patterns that defied tradition, darkening in patches where no storm should gather. The wind carried distant rumbles, low and ominous, unlike any Elara had ever heard. Even the sentient clouds seemed unsettled, their pulses erratic, their glows dimmer. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and violet, Kaelin gathered the apprentices around an ancient fire pit etched with runes. The flames flickered, casting dancing shadows on faces both young and weathered. "The sky is changing," Kaelin said gravely. "There are disturbances, signs that the balance we have maintained for centuries is shifting. The old magic that binds the clouds and the winds may be weakening." A hush fell over the group. Ilara's heart quickened. She felt the weight of Kellen's words press upon her like the gathering night. "What do we do?" Mira whispered, her voice barely audible. Kellen's gaze swept over them all before settling back on Elara. "We watch, we learn, and we prepare." As the stars ignited, one by one in the velvet sky, Alara stood apart, her breath visible in the cooling air. The clouds above seemed to pulse with a strange energy, restless and alive. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses, seeking the rhythm beneath the chaos. A whisper of wind brushed her cheek, carrying a hint of distant thunder and secrets yet untold. Somewhere, deep within the sky, a storm was stirring, one that would test the limits of all she had yet to understand. With a soft sigh, Alara opened her eyes and looked upward, determination hardening in her gaze. She was ready to face whatever the sky would bring, for in the boundless heavens, where the clouds breathed and the winds sang, her story was just beginning. The night deepened, and with it, the promise of adventure and peril loomed on the horizon. Alara's journey as a cloud shepherd was not merely a lesson in tending the skies, but a call to guardianship over a realm fragile yet magnificent, a realm that might soon face its greatest trial. And so, beneath the watchful stars and the ever-shifting clouds, Alara took her first true breath as a steward of the sky, unaware that the winds of change were already gathering speed. Alara stood at the edge of the floating isle, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. Today marked her first solo task as an apprentice cloud shepherd, a rite of passage she had dreamed about since she first watched the elder shepherds guide the sentient clouds across the endless sky. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of ozone and the soft whisper of distant winds. Above her, the vast expanse of sky stretched in endless blue, dotted with the drifting, living clouds she had come to know as companions. Taking a deep breath, Alara reached out her hand towards the nearest cloud, a gentle, pillow-like mass with edges that shimmered faintly under the sun's glow. She had learned to listen to their moods, to feel the subtle shifts in their forms and temperaments. But today, something was different. The cloud trembled beneath her touch, restless and unsettled. A low, almost imperceptible hum vibrated through the air, tickling her senses like the faint crackle of static electricity. Steady, steady, Alara whispered to herself, recalling Kellen's patient teachings. Feel their rhythm, their heartbeat. The cloud pulsed with an energy she had never encountered before, an undercurrent of wildness, a distant storm trapped within its swirling depths. Her bright grey eyes narrowed as she tried to focus, but the feeling was elusive, like a secret whispered just beyond reach. She closed her eyes and let her senses expand, reaching out not just with her hands, but with her mind, hoping to understand the strange restlessness. Suddenly, a sharp gust of wind swept across the aisle, tugging at her cloak and sending a shiver down her spine. The cloud writhed in response, flickering with an eerie flicker of pale lightning hidden beneath its soft surface. Elora's breath caught. This was no ordinary cloud. Something ancient and powerful stirred within. The distant murmur of voices drifted to her ears, pulling her attention. Below, on the central aisle where the Sky Kingdoms gathered, a tense assembly was underway. Eldrin, the stern-faced diplomat known for his conservative views, stood among a group of elders, their expressions grim as they debated the changing weather patterns. Rumors of unpredictable storms and strange cloud behaviors had spread quickly, sowing seeds of fear and suspicion among the factions. "The balance is shifting," Eldrin said, his voice low but firm. "If this continues, it could unravel the fragile peace we have maintained for decades." Elora's thoughts flickered back to the restless cloud under her care. Was this strange energy connected to the political unease? Could the winds themselves be warning of something far greater? Determined to understand, she guided the cloud gently across the sky, coaxing it to settle, but the electric hum persisted. Every so often, the cloud would pulse with bright flashes of light, as if trying to communicate or break free. Elora's fingers tingled with the magic she had only begun to comprehend, the ancient call of the skies beckoning her deeper into secrets long forgotten. As the sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in hues of amber and rose, Elara found a quiet ledge where she could observe the cloud in peace. The restless mass hovered against the fading light, shadows dancing within its depths. She spoke softly, her voice barely more than a breath. "What are you trying to tell me?" In that still moment, the wind stilled briefly, and Elara felt a flicker of connection, an echo of something vast and wild, a force both beautiful and terrifying. Her heart ached with awe and a growing sense of responsibility. This was only the beginning. Night began to fall, and the floating isles were bathed in the cool glow of twin moons. Elara's journey had taken its first true step, but the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. The whispers in the wind carried promises of challenges to come, and she knew she would need to be brave. She glanced skyward one last time before retreating to her quarters, the restless cloud still hovering nearby, a silent companion in the gathering dusk. Tomorrow, she would seek Kellen's counsel. Tonight, though, she allowed herself a moment of quiet wonder, listening to the secrets carried on the breath of the sky. "The sky is speaking," she murmured, "and I must learn to listen." The morning sun spilled its golden light over the floating isle, casting long shadows across the jagged rocks that jutted from the mist below. Elara stood at the cliff's edge, her grey eyes reflecting the vast expanse of sentient clouds drifting beneath her feet like gentle waves on an endless sea. Beside her, Kalen, tall and weather-beaten, his silver-streaked hair tousled by the breeze, surveyed the sky with a quiet intensity that bespoke decades spent among these ethereal realms. "Look closely, Elara," Kalen said, his voice low and steady. "The clouds are not just water and vapor. They are alive, breathing, thinking in ways we are only beginning to understand. Each one holds a fragment of the sky's soul." Elara nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of awe and the faint thrill of fear. She had spent weeks learning the basics of cloud shepherding, but Kellen's teachings promised to unlock something deeper, the ancient traditions that bound the floating isles and their inhabitants to the elemental forces that shaped their world. Long ago, Kalen continued, before the continent shattered and these isles took to the sky, the elemental beings walked freely among us. They were guardians, creators, and destroyers, bound by magic older than memory. The clouds you tend are their descendants, imbued with fragments of that lost power. Elara listened intently as the wind carried Kellen's words, weaving them into the tapestry of the sky. She could almost see the swirling forms of those ancient being spirits of wind, lightning, and storm that had shaped the world before it was broken. Later, they retreated to Kellen's study, a cavernous room carved from the heart of the isle, its walls lined with shelves, heavy with scrolls, relics, and maps. The air smelled of old parchment and damp stone, a sanctuary of knowledge amidst the ever-shifting clouds. Kalen unrolled a faded scroll, its delicate script telling of forgotten pacts and elemental rites. "These texts speak of the lost magic that once held the balance," he explained. "Magic that bound the spirits to the sky, preventing their power from unraveling the fragile realm we now inhabit." Ilara's fingers trembled slightly as she traced the intricate symbols, feeling a spark of something ancient awaken within her. The connection to the clouds deepened, their moods and whispers clearer than ever before. In the afternoon sun, Kalen led Elara outside to a quiet glade where the clouds gathered low and playful. With a practiced gesture, he called forth a small, misty cloud that shimmered in the light. It twisted and curled at his bidding, forming shapes that seemed almost sentient. Cloud shepherding is more than tending, Kalen said. Eyes twinkling, it is a dialogue, a dance with the elemental forces. Alara reached out hesitantly, her hands moving as if to embrace the cloud. The mist responded, swirling around her fingers, cool and alive. Laughter bubbled up from her lips, a sound of pure joy and wonder. As the day faded into twilight, the mood shifted. Kellen's tone grew somber as he shared the story of a cataclysmic storm that had once ravaged the Sky Kingdoms. A tempest born of imbalance and forgotten magic. His eyes, sharp and piercing, met Ilara's. That storm destroyed much and nearly tore the floating isles from the sky. It was a warning, a reminder of the fragile line we walk between creation and destruction. Alara swallowed hard, the weight of her burgeoning responsibilities settling on her shoulders. The lessons of the past were clear. The lost magic was both a source of wonder and a dire threat. I will not let that happen again, she said quietly, more to herself than to Kalen. Good, Kalen nodded, because the storm you face now is unlike any before. You must learn to master the ancient ways, to listen not only with your ears, but with your heart and soul. The clouds, the spirits, they will guide you if you are willing to hear. The night crept in, wrapping the isle in a blanket of stars. Alara stood alone on the cliff once more, the wind tugging at her dark hair, the clouds whispering secrets in the darkness. Somewhere deep within the tempest clouds, she sensed a restlessness, a power waiting to be unleashed. Her journey was only beginning, and the sky held its breath. The morning air carried a restless chill, a subtle shift that made the usual calm of the floating islands feel fragile, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Ilara stood at the edge of her small isle, wind tugging at her dark hair, eyes scanning the horizon where the clouds gathered with an unsettling urgency. The sentient clouds, usually graceful and predictable, moved erratically, their moods flickering like quicksilver beneath the dawning storm. Across the scattered isles, shepherds sensed the change too. Kellen's voice cut through the growing wind as he called apprentices to the communal hall, his tone grave yet composed. This tempest is unlike any we've known. It stirs with a hunger and wildness beyond natural weather. Stay alert and trust your instincts. Inside, the hall buzzed with quiet murmurs and the rustle of cloaks as Alara exchanged a worried glance with Mira, her closest friend. Do you feel it too? Myra whispered, her voice tight but steady. Alara nodded, her fingers brushing the air as if to touch the restless clouds beyond the windows. It's alive, more than just weather, like it's watching us. Outside, the storm gathered strength, lightning flickering with a chaotic pulse. The clouds howled and twisted, their forms shifting with alarming speed. Alara's heart raced as she stepped into the tempest's edge, the charged air humming with power. She reached out softly, whispering to a nearby cloud, "Calm now. We're here." The cloud lashed suddenly, sparks snapping in the air, before quivering under her touch and settling into a tense stillness. Mira joined her, their hands working in tandem to soothe the volatile presence. Yet beneath their efforts, a deeper force churned, one that seemed to pulse with ancient fury and forgotten magic. Kalen approached, his weather-beaten face set in somber lines. "This storm is no ordinary tempest," he said quietly. "It carries the weight of something old, something bound long ago." Ilara's mind raced back to the stories Kalen had shared, the lost magic, the elemental beings, and the fractured sky kingdoms. Could this tempest be a sign of what was stirring beneath the clouds? As thunder rolled, and the wind screamed around them. The floating islands trembled. The sentient clouds flickered between fear and defiance, their usually serene forms warping in response to the storm's chaotic heart. Ilara felt a surge of determination swell within her. This was more than a test of skill. It was a call to protect the fragile balance of their world. "We must understand this storm," she said, voice steady despite the fear tightening her chest. "It's trying to tell us something." The tempest's roar seemed to echo her words, a fierce reminder that the sky's secrets were far from fully revealed. As the floating isles rocked on the winds, Ilara braced herself for the challenges ahead, the horizon darkening with the promise of both danger and discovery. Night fell with the storm still raging, clouds swirling like restless spirits above the shattered continent below. Ilara's thoughts drifted to her missing father, whose legacy whispered through the winds she sought to command. The path before her was uncertain, fraught with peril yet illuminated by a fragile hope. In the heart of the tempest, something ancient stirred, and Ilara, apprentice, cloud, shepherd, was poised to face it. The air shifted with a sudden gust, stirring the delicate mists that clung to the edges of the floating isle. Ilara, perched atop a smooth, cloud-formed boulder, narrowed her eyes against the breeze, her grey gaze searching the horizon. The sky was a restless canvas of shifting shadows and light, mirroring the turmoil she felt within. The quiet hum of the sentient clouds around her filled the space with a gentle, almost musical pulse, yet beneath that melody lurked an uneasy discord. Without warning, the wind whipped violently, parting the soft clouds to reveal a figure descending like a spark of flame against the pale sky. Sylvie landed with a graceful yet defiant step, her wild copper hair a riot of color in the shifting light, and eyes like crackling emeralds that seemed to pulse with latent energy. Her presence was electric, stirring the very air with a sense of urgency and raw power. Ilara rose to meet her, heart pounding with an unfamiliar mixture of excitement and apprehension. Sylvie's reputation preceded her, an elemental mage known for her fierce independence and mastery over wind and lightning, yet also for her disregard of the old traditions cherished by the cloud shepherds. Now, here she was, standing on Ilara's small isle, a whirlwind of untamed energy and untold secrets. "You must be Ilara," Sylvie said, her voice sharp yet tinged with a hint of mischief. "The apprentice who talks to clouds like their old friends." She smiled, a quick flash of teeth that was both challenging and inviting. Ilara's lips parted in surprise. "I am, and you are." "Sylvie, I've come because the winds whisper of storms darker than any in living memory, and the old magic is stirring. Lost relics, ancient bonds, they might be the key to understanding what threatens us all." Kalen stepped forward from the shadows of a nearby cloud, his tall, weather-beaten frame casting a long silhouette. His piercing blue eyes regarded Sylvie with cautious skepticism. "Lost magic is a dangerous path, Sylvie. The old ways kept balance, and bending them risks everything we hold dear." Sylvie's grin widened, undeterred. "And the old ways kept us blind to what's coming. If we don't change, the Sky Kingdoms will fall, and with them, everything you've sworn to protect." The tension between mentor and mage crackled as fiercely as the lightning Sylvie summoned in a sudden flash, the small spark dancing between her fingers. It illuminated their faces. Ilara's wide with wonder and uncertainty, Kellen's tight with worry, and Sylvie's alight with defiant hope. As the sun dipped lower, painting the clouds in hues of purple and gold, the three figures sat beneath a drifting cloud, voices low but urgent. Sylvie shared tales of relics scattered across forgotten isles. imbued with elemental power that could aid in the containment, or perhaps transformation, of the growing storm spirit. Alara listened intently, every word weaving new threads of possibility into her resolve. Yet beneath the flicker of hope lay the shadow of doubt. Could this unpredictable mage's knowledge truly be the salvation they needed? Or would it instead unravel the fragile balance, igniting divisions among the sky kingdoms already stretched thin by fear and suspicion? As stars blinked to life overhead, Alara found herself at a crossroads. The path ahead was unclear, fraught with risk and promise alike. But one truth was undeniable: the storm was coming, and with it, a reckoning that would demand courage, trust, and a willingness to embrace the new while honoring the old. And so, with the flickering lightning casting long shadows, Alara's journey took an unexpected turn, one that would test her heart and her magic, and ultimately the fate of the sky itself. The wind rose again, carrying with it whispers of change, and Sylvie's arrival marked the first spark in a tempest that would reshape the floating isles forever.